Hello, thank you for joining me. This is Trish Robinson with Evolve Training and Development. And if you're on this video, that means that you have taken your business to the next level. We are on this online training on building better business. This is module 2. Our first module was all about influence and how you influence and impact your staff. The second module is how of an effective communicator are you? And so we want to talk about that. We're going to digress and digest all that information and see where you are in terms of being an effective communicator. Now, the first step is when we are approaching our staff or even maybe another upper management, we need to think before we speak. Sometimes when we're indulging in conversation, we don't really think about what we want to say. We often just say it. So our words definitely have an impact on how we can move and motivate someone to take the next step, or how we can be influential in terms of getting the job done or the task done, or even how excited they are to even do the work. So we want to make sure that we think about our words, choose our words cautiously, and also how we say them. Our body language has an effect also on how we receive certain things. So think before you speak. Make sure that you are in the right frame of mind. A lot of times we bring our emotions into our conversations. We have to make sure that we remove all those emotions and make sure that they play somewhere they need to be and not so much in that conversation, because they can definitely have an impact on how we relay certain things and then how it's received. So first thing you need to do is think before we speak. Now the second thing we need to do is to be clear and concise on what we're saying. Sometimes our messages get garbled and we don't, and the person that's receiving it don't understand quite clear what we're trying to say. So it's our best interest to, when we're having a conversation and then we're relaying a task or something we want our staff to do, we need to say, follow up with, are you clear on that? Do you understand where we're going with this? Kind of making it so that you get some feedback from your staff. So you make sure that they are clear on the messages, they're clear what needs to be done. And if they have any concerns, then there's a perfect opportunity for them to say, you know what, hey, I didn't quite understand that. I didn't get that point, that part. Can you go over that again? So that's a perfect opportunity to make sure that everyone is on the same page, that the work is going to get done correctly, because now we know what needs to be done. So make sure that you're clear and then you're concise, and then making sure that this is not something that's going to be changing on a regular basis. And if it is, that you are clear on those changes, that you make sure that, you know what, this is how we were doing it last week or last month, but here's some different things that we're going to be doing. We have implemented some certain things that need to be done while doing this job. So you want to make sure you're clear and concise, and messages are clear. The third thing we want to do is avoid making assumptions. Again, it goes back to making sure that you're clear. You don't want to assume anything. You want to make sure that your staff is clear on what your goals are. They're clear on what the expectations are. They're clear on where the time restraints they have on the job. They're clear on what needs to be done first. So you want to make sure that you're not assuming anything, because oftentimes with different jobs, things may change. So you want to make sure that they're not assuming that you want this done 2 hours versus you asking to get it done in an hour's time. You want to make sure that there's no gray areas, that they're clear on the messages, and there's no assumptions in between. So you want to make sure you ask those key questions like, again, do you understand what the job is in detail? Is there any questions that you have moving forward? Is there anything that I can help clear up? Do you need, how much time do you need on this job? What is required? What are the requirements for the job to get done? And who do I need to tap into? What resources in the company that I need to address, or any issues that may arise during the task? So you want to make sure there's no assumptions and there's no gray areas. So first thing we need to do is to think before we speak. Make sure that we are not bringing our emotions from home or emotions from somewhere else, that we are focused on the job and making sure that our employees receive it well. And then being clear and concise, making sure that the message that we send are clear. There's no garble, there's no misunderstanding, that we understand what needs to be done at that particular time. And then alleviating all assumptions. There's no assumptions to how much time it needs to be done on the job, or what changes need to be made, who needs to be contacted. We need to make sure that we are clear on all those messages that we relay. And then one of the biggest thing that I see often happens is listen with the intent to learn. Oftentimes we're listening not with the intent to learn, but to just to hear, just to get the person out of our way. Sometimes we don't want to. We're not listening attentively. We're not listening to make sure that we understand. We're not listening for clarity. We're listening with, I got to get this done, but really not focusing. And sometimes we miss some key points. And this is something that happens oftentimes when we're in an environment of learning, because we only hear what we want to hear. But it's imperative that we hear everything. So we need to listen with the intent to learning, not listening to give feedback all the time. Because oftentimes we're ready to say something back to someone when they're talking. We need to be listening and with the intent to learn something new. And if we don't focus, give someone our undivided attention, then oftentimes we're going to lose key things that we need to do. And you know what? And then we'll go back and say, I didn't hear that point. That's because we were too busy focusing on other things. We're probably moving past the actual job, thinking about doing the job versus listening to what the techniques, the things that is required to do the job. We're already in motion, in action, and actually doing the job, and we're not really focusing on what really needs to be done to get the job done. So we need to listen with the intent to learn something. And even if we think we know, sometimes we don't know, because again, oftentimes things change. So you want to make sure that as a supervisor or manager, that you're bringing those things up in that conversation. Well, you know what, we used to do it this way, but here's some changes that were made last week or last month. You want to make sure that you are in a position that you're not alleviating any gray areas or anyone coming back and say, you know what, I didn't get that, because we want to make sure that we're learning with the intent to do the job, not just listening and moving through the course without really focusing on what we need to do. So listen with the intent to learn and not listening with the intent to move on to the next thing. So we need to really be focused on that. Then number 4, I think we're at number 4. Number 5. Number 5 is inspire. And a lot of times we don't hear this in a job, in the workforce, because we're not here to inspire. You're here to do a job and to do it right and do it well. But inspiration moves people and motivates people to do a better job. So inspire them to see what the future holds for them. Say, you know what, you're here in this position right now, but guess what we can be? This is where you can be a year from now, 6 months from now. So inspire them to be motivated to do the job well, and give them initiatives that they can gravitate to and say, you know what, I'm inspired because I know what I can see in my future. I know what this job is going to take me if I continue to do a good job. So you want to make sure that you always drop nuggets of inspiration in your staff, and even with upper staff. We want to make sure we inspire them, let them know that we're doing a great job, let them know that the job is getting done, that your staff is doing what they need to do, and that trickles down to having a wonderful and harmonious environment. So it works its way up and it works its way down. So make sure that you are often inspiring and motivating your staff to see what the future holds for them, and letting them know that this is not the end. There is so much more. There's a whole lot of possibility for you to move forward in this company if you do what you need to do. So make sure that you are motivating them and inspire them to take their job seriously and be passionate about it and love what they do, so that they can move to the next stage. Okay. So number 6 is train and teach. So we're training them to do the job. That's a given. That's what you're required to do. You're required to train them. You're training them to know the business. But here's the second part to that. Teaching them. Teaching them life lessons. If you are open to listening to what's going on with your staff and sharing information out, you want to remain professional, but at the same time, you want to they want to be personable. You want to be able to, they want to know that they can come to you with certain issues or concerns, and that you're open, your door is wide open, and you're able to receive them well. So you want to make sure not only you're training them about the job and what needs to be done, but you're also teaching them life lessons, teaching them how to carry themselves, how to be professional in the workplace, how to be motivated, how to be inspired to do beyond what they're doing. So you want to make sure that you share with your staff a part of you. Oftentimes we are afraid to show who we are because we don't want people to know, about us. But when we're working in an environment and we're trying to get our staff to do certain things, and it's supposed to be in a setting that sometimes can be intense, we want to make sure that our staff is able to come to us and talk to us about certain things that may be hindering them from getting the job done. So you want to have an open door, open rapport. You want to build a relationship. That is key to effective communication, is building a relationship, and you want a relationship with your staff. So you want to make sure that they are receiving you well, that they are that they can come to you with advice on certain things that may be outside of the business arena. So don't be quick to say no. We keep personal business personal. We want to make sure that we're building a family. And that's what building better business is. It's all about building a community. It's about building a family and trusting our employees to do what they need to do because they trust you. And if they trust you, then I guarantee you that you will have a more harmonious environment. So let's go over those key points first. Number 1 was think before you speak. Be careful what emotions you bring into your conversation. Be clear and concise. Make sure that there's no gray areas, that everyone understand what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. Number 3, avoid assumptions. Don't just assume that they know what to do. You want to make sure that you relay those messages and be consistent with those messages. And then listen with the intent to learn something. Not always being quick to want to say something when someone's speaking, but think about what they're saying. Really gravitate towards them, and then also marinate on the words that they're saying so you'll be able to do the job at hand, or understand that they know what needs to be done. And then be inspiring. Don't be afraid to inspire your staff. Let them know what their future holds. This is not the end result, but there's so much more for you, and I see it in you. So you want to be encouraging. And then lastly, train and teach. You're training them about the job, what needs to be done, but also teaching them life lessons and helping them be more powerful in terms of how they can create an environment or how they can move forward in this job or the task at hand. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm hoping that this is going to be helpful for you to move forward in your business. We are going to be working on Module 3. I'll be looking forward to sharing this video with you when you receive it. Please email me. Let me know you received it. Again, thank you. This is Trish Robinson with Evolve Training and Development, and this is Building Better Business. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.